Before we begin, I want to share a quick update. This episode was recorded during the government shutdown, before we were informed that we could not release any content during that time. Thank you all for your patience and understanding. This episode was originally scheduled to air on the first Thursday of November, just like every monthly release. Because of the delay, we're extending the $50 Amazon gift card giveaway window for 10 days from the release of this episode. To enter, make sure you comment, share, and submit the feedback form below. We'll announce the winner during our 1-year anniversary episode, our 12th episode in December. So thank you again for your support. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Phantom Fuel Podcast. I'm your host, RJ, once again, and it's November, which means we're diving into a month full of awareness, gratitude, and reflection. November is American Diabetes Month, National Alzheimer's Disease Awareness Month, Lung Cancer Awareness Month, Pancreatic Cancer Awareness Month, and National Family Caregivers Month. And of course, we can't forget Veterans Day on November 11th and Thanksgiving coming up on November 27th. But before we get too far into the celebration season, let's take a moment to acknowledge something that's been affecting all of us. At the time of this recording, we're currently in a government shutdown. Around bases across the country, including right here in Nebraska, many offices have limited resources, reduced hours, and minimal staffing. But here's what's important. You are not alone. Even with these challenges, please don't hesitate to reach out for help if you need it. Whether it's SARC, JAG, mental health services, supervisors, or leadership, your resources are still available. We hope by the time of this episode releases that the government has responded and reopened. But no matter what, the Phantom Fuel team wants you to know we're here for you. Your well-being matters. We will keep doing what we can to keep the mission fueled. Now let's take a quick look at what's coming up in this month's episode. We've got an exclusive interview with Senior Master Sergeant Eddie, who sat down with Colonel Christopher Hess, commander of the 155th Air Refueling Wing. You'll hear about the colonel's journey through his career, how he rose to command, and the strategic vision shaping the future of the 155th. We'll also talk about guard moments you might have missed, like the final airborne jumps of the Nebraska's 134th Infantry, closing out over 4 decades of airborne history. Then we'll jump into upcoming events around the base you'll want to mark on your calendar. And as always, we'll close with holiday safety tips to keep you, your family, and your home safe as we move through the season of Thanksgiving and beyond. And don't forget, we're down to just a few weeks left for your chance to enter a $50 Amazon gift card. Details coming up later in the show. So stick around. You won't want to miss what's ahead. All right, it's time to dive into our feature interview. Senior Master Sergeant Eddie sat down with Colonel Christopher Hess, the 155th Air Refueling Wing Commander, to talk about leadership, growth, and the future of our mission. Let's listen in.
The views expressed by our guests and hosts are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Air Force, Air National Guard, Nebraska Air National Guard, Nebraska National Guard, or any government agency.
Welcome to the Phantom Fuel Podcast. Today, we have the 155th Air Refueling Commander, Colonel Christopher Kipper Hess. Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive into a few topics. I was so fortunate to have you as my supervisor for a couple years when you were the DOSA, and then obviously knowing you as the maintenance commander and now wing commander. I'm super excited to share your perspective and get your voice to every airman.
Yeah.
But I do think that your kind of upbringing and the start of your life and how it led to where you first became a pilot with us is interesting. So can you just tell us a little bit, childhood, where you went to school? I don't know if it's in the local area or where you were. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll go into that. But before that, yeah, it was great to work with you too down at Joint Force Headquarters and to be able to see recruiting from such an up close and personal level and to see the impact you guys made. And I just really appreciated what you did down there and the culture now that continues in recruiting.
Oh, thanks, sir.
Yeah. So my story actually starts here at this base. You know, my dad was, he was Air Force, so he was an EB-66 navigator or EWO, and then he was a F4 WISO or EWO, and then got out of active duty, came back to Lincoln. He's from Alliance, and my mom was from here, and they had met in college. So they came back here, and he got in the Guard and flew in the backseat of the F4. So we were out here constantly as a kid. So back when that was the officers club where now the engine shop is, which was formerly the gym, and then the All Ranks Club. My dad would bring us out here. I have two brothers, and drop us off. If my mom had to work on a Saturday, and he'd drop us off in the club, and we'd run around and pour ourselves Cokes, play pool with these balls that were red and white. Had no idea it was crud at the time. I just wondered why they weren't regular pool balls. And then someone would come and grab us, and we'd go get in a truck, and we'd go out to the runway barriers for the F4s when they were flying and check the barriers. And I'm sure it was all totally legal, of course. So we'd be three of us kids jam-packed in one of those old blue trucks, driving down the taxiways, telling them to go faster. And then we'd stop, and we'd check the barriers, and then the F4s would taxi by, and then they would take off. And he'd always make us wear ear protection. But of course, we'd open the door, take off the ear protection, because loud sounds are cool, especially afterburners. And we'd watch a 3-ship take off or a 4-ship, whatever it was for the day. And it was just awesome. It really, that's where my love of flying came from. And then, of course, seeing service, then that's the service component too. So fast forward, I loved flying. I loved airplanes. And, I went to high school. So we lived in Lincoln, went to high school here in Lincoln. I wanted to go out of state for school just to do something different. But if you would have asked me, like everyone knew I wanted to fly and fly for the military. If you would ask, I'm going to fly. So I chose a major engineering, aerospace engineering, because math was kind of easy in high school and I loved airplanes. So I go to KU and do this aerospace engineering, and lo and behold, it's really hard. and just because you love airplanes doesn't mean you're going to do well in a program. So I got knocked around a little bit, and then through some great mentoring from my guidance counselor, if you will, one of the professors there in the college, I figured out I needed to apply myself very, very specifically to studying. So I told myself I'll just keep doing it until I don't understand it. Well, I worked a little harder and did better. I wouldn't say I'm a very good engineer at all, but I did graduate. The year before I graduated, something hit me. Again, everyone in college knew I wanted to fly and fly for the military, but I hadn't done anything about it. So I had this dream, but I hadn't done anything. And something happened in 1993 where I said, oh, I now realize that a dream doesn't happen if you don't have any action. Like I'm not going to get to where I see myself if I don't do something. So I went to the recruiters, and they said, for ROTC, and they're like, we have no 1-year programs. So you're out of luck. I'm like, shoot. So then I decided, well, okay, I got a year. And then I graduated. And I went to the active duty recruiter and told them I wanted to fly, and they laughed at me. They were cutting pilots in the Air Force at the time. And then I applied at the Air National Guard here in Nebraska. And I got a navigator slot on the active duty side, and then I got a pilot slot here at the Nebraska Air National Guard. So I was back in Lincoln. I was working, went to pilot training, and got done with that, and came back here, and that's how I got here.
That's awesome. Well, I think part of your college, though, and maybe not having applying yourself, you were a Division I athlete too while you're at Kansas, right?
No, I was just a soccer player. We played club soccer. So they did not have a Division I men's team. They did stand up a Division I's women's team while we were there, but that's a whole different story.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, so you've been in the Nebraska Air Guard your entire career.
That is true. Yes.
And then, but you haven't been in ops your entire time, right? So where's your career, what different positions have you held, and where's your career taken you throughout the, 32 years in the Guard?
Yeah, so I think it's like 28 now, 28, from 1996.
Okay, yeah, I'll work on math. Yeah. I'll apply that too.
No, that's okay. So I started off in ops, started off flying, and interestingly enough, if you would have asked me all the way up until 2015 or so, I would have said, I'll just stay in operations. Because, you get to fly, you're right there with the jets. It's what you know, and people are typically comfortable with what you know. I was in ops from 96 all the way through 2016 before I went to maintenance. And the interesting part of that is it wasn't that I said I wouldn't go, or it wasn't that. They asked, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I'll go do that. But given my just pure choice, I probably wouldn't have left operations. And part of that is comfortableness and just thinking that you understand I understand the rest of the wing. Well, what I have found from moving to maintenance in 2016, staying there till 2021, and then going to Joint Force Headquarters from 2021 to 23 and doing both the Director of Staff Air and the Chief of the Joint Staff, which got me into the J staff and force presentation to the state, in addition to force presentation to combatant commanders on the national level for federal forces, that I didn't know what the rest of the wing did and how the state worked as well as I thought I did. You always have a conceptual idea of it. For me to be able to branch out, that was probably the most significant impact on my growth, as a leader and understanding of all aspects of the mission. Because when you get comfortable, you can start thinking that, well, okay, the airplanes are the most important part, but that's really not true. Because if you don't have the maintainers, and if you don't have mission support, you don't have medical, you don't have all the other functions everyone's doing a little piece here and there that combines to getting that jet off the ground for that particular mission. Without those, you fail. And if you don't truly understand that, it's hard to lead at the higher levels and advocate appropriately.
So how was that when you left ops and going into maintenance? How was that reception and transition and just kind of learning that job with what I would assume be a completely different type of just day-to-day battle rhythm?
Right. It's a total different type of organizational structure. Operations is really flat and horizontal. I could have been 1 minute doing strategic manning projections for pilots out 5 to 6 years in operations, and that 5 minutes later, I'd be helping someone with a DTS because I'm the only one there, and a part-time pilot walks in and says, hey, I need help. Going to maintenance, they're much more vertical. Underneath a group commander, there's 5 chiefs, and they really want the direction from you, and then they push the direction out. They really wouldn't want me bypassing them and doing some of the things they would want to take care of, like DTS or some of those other items. So it was a total different switch of, hey, the tangible value, a lot of it is leadership and culture and direction and really adhering to those lines in the vertical chain. But it was really, I didn't know, I don't know maintenance. I go over there in 2016 and I'm like, what value am I bringing? This is really hard to find my value. And one value I could bring is I could interpret what ops was trying to say and do, and also knew when we could push back a little bit from the jet side, just because I understood a lot of what ops was trying to do. So I could help there, I could provide leadership, but really for a long time, I really leaned on everyone else because I was not the expert. So in a hierarchical structure, they look to the top to make decisions a lot of times. Well, I didn't have the knowledge to make the decisions, so I just utilized the team. And really, that taught me that person at the top doesn't always have the answers, and specifically if you don't have the knowledge. So it was a great learning experience, and it was just great to get to know other people, other processes on the base, and really expand my horizon or my aperture of what we do.
And then from there, moving over to the Director of Staff Air, or the DOSA. What was that? What was that like? And what was some things that you saw at the DOSA level that maybe were unique to that type of environment?
Yeah. So when I moved to the DOSA, I moved to the 4th floor of Joint Force Headquarters. So my office was then next to the Chief of the Joint Staff, which was Mary Mild, and then the Chief of Staff of the Army, and that was Thad Finneran. We were essentially, when the TAG walked out of his office, our offices were pretty much right there with the command chiefs on both sides. Really, the pushing down policy came through us, and then also pushing back up to the TAG and giving guidance or input into those policies. So you got out of the doing business, right? The wing much more operational to more programmatic policy and those type of future planning. So it really took me out of my element of being doing things and really more planning and policy, which may not be my favorite thing. But it is important because if people don't know what's expected and what the structure is, for instance, COVID, clear communication enables the warfighter to be ready and do their job. Whereas if we don't get the messaging right at the Joint Force Headquarters level, it just causes confusion at the unit level. And then you're spending resources not doing your job and being ready. And we found that no matter how hard we tried to be very clear, it was difficult. So it was interesting to see that, and then to see the Army, and then to see Nebraska Emergency Management, because the tag is one of the 7 tags, I think, that is over not only the military department, the Army and Air National Guard, but the emergency management here for Nebraska.
Which dubs him a super tag, is that?
Yeah. Yes.
So coming from Joint Force Headquarters, you got hired as the wing commander in 2023.
Yep.
So how has that transition been, and what have you learned or just experienced transitioning in the wing commander?
Also, being up at Joint Force Headquarters, another thing, there's just not a lot of staff. I was pulled in multiple different directions on the day-to-day basis with TAG, and then part-time, we had the A-TAG and the Director of Joint Staff, another GO. And then you have the full-time at Joint Force Headquarters, like A1 staff, essentially. And then you have the Joint Force Headquarters Air staff. So there were many, many plates spinning, and they were all kind of off in different directions. And then coming to the wing, what I loved about it is getting back to operational, back to really boots on the ground and conducting the mission. And really one focus, that is our state and federal mission. So it was great to come back, working with the group commanders, working with all the squadron commanders, all the airmen, just really impressed with everybody. And because, I came from Joint Force Headquarters after a couple of years, and like, well, I've been out of the wing. Again, I had to lean on other people. I didn't come here with solutions for every issue that was, or challenge, if you will, because I didn't know everything and I wasn't aware. So again, just like in maintenance, had to really rely on the existing folks to help me get a footing and then collaboratively make decisions and move forward.
So moving in this wing commander position, what's been maybe the biggest surprise that you've learned or experienced in the past couple of years?
So, going to maintenance, I thought that opened my eyes and then gave me the perspective to look at all the other groups in a different light. But I was wrong once again, thinking that I had the knowledge. The things I've learned of how much goes into getting our jets off the ground or our people deployed and keeping them at a higher state of readiness and the base in compliance with federal and local regulations, it can be overwhelming. There are so many functions out here, bio, public health, CE does so many cooperative agreements that touch things outside. It is the spider web of influence and organizations that are not just here on base, that enable us to all do our job and eventually get the jets out of Lincoln and or even just deploy our folks and or do our state mission is immense. And for the first year, I'd be like, what's this meeting on my calendar? Like, oh, well, that's a yearly, a requirement. And I'd listen to what these folks are doing, dealing with the EPA, taking care of all the waste, et cetera, making sure that we're compliant with regulations that I didn't even know exist, but are ultimately our responsibility. Just amazing, and really makes me so proud to be part of a team this big with a couple main focuses, and that we all get that job done for each other to make the mission happen.
So turning gears into maybe some changes since you've been here as the wing commander, but one of the new things that we've been going through and we've exercised once and get ready to get inspected on are the combat readiness exercises and combat readiness inspections, or freeze and cries.
Yeah.
So when this first started rolling out, how was that presented to you? And I'm guessing you probably didn't have much of a say to figure out what we're going to do or how that looks.
This is true. Yeah.
But how was that presented? And then how did you take such a big shift as the wing commander and guide our wing to start tackling this?
Yeah, so the crees and cries are a change or a result of a change of doctrine, right? The agile combat employment. So, which goes back to even further higher perspective, I guess, is, we were in the type of war we were in and preparing for from 9/11 until, within the last 5 years or so, a insurgency conflict where you're not contested and degraded. You have air superiority. So you're organized differently for that. You fight differently. Therefore, you train differently. and you organize differently, and you validate or exercise, inspect differently. So as agile combat employment took hold, they're changing how we employ our forces, changing how we're organized at the wing level as a result of it, and then also how we validate our readiness, which is the inspections and exercises. So the combat readiness exercise and inspections are really a result of this flow down of trying to make everything match the new doctrine of agile combat employment, which is directed towards great power competition, which is we're back to a near peer conflict versus the insurgency where we are only at risk in asymmetric ways in that war. And then in the near peer, not only in asymmetric ways are we at risk, but it's big, force on force, big. So, and this has not been as orderly as you would think, other than Agile Combat Employment came out and you could read it. But they, as far as combat readiness exercise and inspections, they looked at how we're going to employ the AFORGEN model and the deployable combat wing model and said, this is how we need to do our exercises and inspections to be ready to actually deploy in this new way. And it gets away, it's the old ATSO, ability to survive and operate with, now you're contested, degraded, and it's just not getting slimed or sea-burny, right? Now it's whatever, you can pick whatever threat you can come up with and it's valid because the spectrum of the enemy will attack us in every spectrum, right? Even in garrison in the homeland. So that's what a CRE and a CRI are about, is the rapid mobilization of the wing to get forces out of garrison to a deployed location as quickly as possible.
And so when I think about all the readiness working groups that were planning all of this and just the hours that we spent with the IG, who did a great job for this being the first one, the one thing I kept telling our defenders over in security forces was, if it sounds confusing and chaotic to you, that's exactly what it is, right? Like, we don't have all the information. We don't have everything, and we're just going to kind of take it for what it is.
Yes.
In reality, if we do get to that point where we're activated and we need to start operating, is the chaos supposed to be part of this? Is that kind of the intention, to have minimal direction and just see what happens?
Well, I think a second order effect is that chaos. And is it helpful? Yes, because it will be what happens. But I think what they're telling us, the primary reason we don't have as much guidance as we would like is we don't have time. If we waited to construct all the guidance and have a nice op board and lay everything out and vet it and then go back and improve it until we get it 90% right and then say, okay, everyone, here's how we're going to do this. Our leadership above us at the state or at the national level think it'll be too late. So they've accepted the chaos and kind of, it's confusing. It can be frustrating. They're accepting that to even move the ball just a little bit forward. And I think on the other side of that is, if we can lead through that, if we can all walk through that together and be comfortable with that chaos, that's only going to serve us better in an actual conflict, because that is what will happen, because the contested, degraded environment we'll be operating in. And that's why mission type orders, air combat, or ACE, agile combat employment, that's the doctrine, because they expect it to be lack of communication, which causes confusion and lack of knowledge of what's happening. So it's not intentional. They don't want it to be that way, but they don't think there's enough time to string or wring that out of the process by being more prepared. But again, I think it's actually valuable, because if you remember, when we get another change with very little guidance on how to implement, and I do this is for me too. It's like, what's the signal? What's the noise? In all this data, what's important? And that's the signal. And it keeps coming back to this North Star of mission accomplishment, right? Like, okay, I know we'll be organized differently. I know we'll employ differently, but we're still doing the same mission, essentially. So that's a point out there, a North Star, if you will. And let's just work through this and try as hard as possible to fit in the guidance, but still just make decisions and get there.
So the next question I had for you was involving the DCWs and that being a piece of the noise. But before we get there, I do think your piece with noise, I forgot when you said this, but you talked about, we're going A to Z. We don't know what B through Y looks like.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there together, but that North Star just needs to be Z. And that was such a good just a focus point for us, because every day is going to bring challenges. Every day is going to bring different noise. You're going to hear something different. But if the end goal, and we'll get to your kind of your focus and your priorities, if that is our end goal, and that, I mean, as the wing commander, that's what we're following. You have just taught and reiterated, drive readiness. And if readiness is your guiding star, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And we'll get through the B through Y.
Yeah.
So I guess within that B through Y comes DCWs, the deployed combat wings. So what does that look like in the future for our wing and our airmen? I mean, are we taking all X amount of us, the entire wing's gone, and we're closing up shop at the main gate and the whole wing's deploying? Or what maybe does this look like in the future?
So I don't know. I'll tell you what they say now. And what they're telling us now is different than what they told us 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. And I expect it'll change more because they are moving rapidly. So I think this bears to mention some history as well. So the DCW is the final step in a 3-part transition from our normal deployment model, where we all were based on UTCs, where we 1Z, 2Z, right? When we did our RCP, the reserve component period, we would get 100 or 150 taskings, and it'd all be small groups of UTCs that are going somewhere. Well, as they started moving through the agile combat employment, they're like, we need to deploy as a force, a bigger force, I guess, or if you will, more UTCs grouped together. And another part of this is, as they describe it to us, they sit and talk at the 4-star level, and they're saying, we need a carrier strike group for the Navy. How many do we have? Oh, you got 3 available. Okay, send 2 there, 1 there. And then they say to the Army, how many divisions or battalions, whatever grouping they use. And they're like, we have 6. And they go, Air Force, what? We have UTCs. and so it confused everybody of how do we employ, and what's our level of force that we present that is understandable to all the service components, and then they can actually utilize in planning. So part of it is the DCW is a planning factor at a high level that puts us on par with what the Navy and the Army use. Carrier strike groups, if you will, is a DCW equivalent, is kind of how they're looking towards this. They first started with expeditionary air groups, and that was a combination of folks, not onesie twosies, but you'd take a wing commander and you'd build up a base, and it was a higher level of organization than small UTCs. And that was for a couple of years. And then they went into Air Task Force, ATFs, which again just built it bigger into groupings, if you will. And then now they're at DCWs, which is deployable combat wings. What this is, well, I'll tell you, it's kind of hard to describe. It's changed so much. But at one point they thought, yes, you would pick up your entire wing minus, let's just call it the command and control. So the wing staff, the wing commander, the A staff, and some support for a base, if you will, some MSG components, etc. Medical bolts on somewhere else. And then that's your command and control and the base functions. And then you bolt on combat power and mission generation force elements underneath it. So a DCW wouldn't necessarily take all their aircraft, but they would take their leadership component. And then they would, maybe if they're a fighter unit, they'd take their fighters, and then they'd bolt on some tactical airlift C-130s and maybe some tankers. Originally, I guess they thought if we employed as DCW in the Guard, we would not have enough people at the wing to keep the wing operating in garrison. So they started thinking we'd combine 2 Air National Guard wings into one to make one deployable combat wing, and then that would leave enough at home station to keep the lights on and keep training, etc. So that's where we're at now, is 2 in-garrison wings, Air National Guard, combine to deploy as one deployable combat wing. In the tanker world, I saw the schedule, and we will do this in 20 or 29 or 30.1, which is fall of 2029. And I've seen the pairings, and we are not paired with another unit. They are really, it looks like they're pairing fighters and tactical airlifts, so like C-130s and F-16s, if you will, to make a DCW. And then we're mission generation force elements. So 4 of our aircraft and our people, maintenance and ops would go. Is that how it'll end up? I'm not sure. For now, that's where we're at. Now, in addition to that, we did get a task order about a month ago. It says in garrison, we are going to activate their A staff and decommission or furl the flag on the ops group and the maintenance group and move into this new structure in garrison by next April 2026. However, the time frame on that is they have an implementation committee and they should publish their findings by October 1st. And then we implement by 1 April, October 2026.
And so when you say that, the chatter and the noise about the groups dissolving, is that what you're implying with that piece of it?
Yes. Yep. It looks like that is going to happen. Now, the implementation guidance, we'll see what that says, because there are impacts in the National Guard that active duty doesn't have to worry about, whether because of our statuses, our DSGs, our full-timers, Title 32 technicians, position descriptions that are tied to supervising X number of people. It gets pretty complicated. On our last Readiness Center commander, wing commander call, National Guard Bureau is committed to doing this. So I anticipate we will.
So when we look at, everything going on, the geopolitical times that we live in it's wild. And, General Hargens, when we were talking, this may be the most impactful geopolitical time that we may have seen, in our lifetimes. So with that, and we're talking about the cry and the crees and all the noise, but saying we don't have time to wait, how urgent is it? Is this, when we look at our airmen and we look at your priorities and really just drive readiness, what does that mean and why is that important? And how does that lead into this bigger picture of all these things going on?
Yeah, because all we have to do is listen to the rhetoric out of China. They told us that they want to be ready by 2027, and it's all published. Their goals, objectives. I mean, they don't really want us in the hemisphere. I just read an article. I just printed it off for Nick's drill. I sent it to myself. We had naval ships sail in between China and in the Taiwan Strait, right? In between Taiwan and China condemned it. They sent their ships to warn us. They are trying to push us out of the first and second island chain. And we have to listen to what they're saying and their actions. And that is why we don't have time, because it could happen at any time. If you look at the number of air infractions in the ADAs of Japan from China and in Taiwan, it's ever increasing. As far as the exercises that happen, open source, you can look at all those. It's really lulling everyone into complacency, right? You just have to look at what they're saying to realize that there's a sense of urgency. And the sense of urgency is driving all the changes that we're seeing and the rapid adoption of them and the assumption or acceptance of higher risk by not knowing exactly how they're going to be implemented, but making us do it anyway.
Going into your priorities as the wing commander, readiness, partnerships, and transformation. I think it's pretty easy to see how that matters at the theoretical or the bigger picture piece. But some of the point of this is getting your voice and your message to our airmen at every level. So what do those mean to you and to our airmen?
Yeah. So when I made the priorities, what matters most, right, is what for our next 5 years is kind of how I looked at it. And so I came up with some pretty detailed priorities. And if you look at our strategic plan, it's just really a building out of those. And, readiness, we cannot accomplish our job unless we're ready. And that's not just the pilots or the jets, it's the maintainers. It's every single airman in each group has to be ready, because there's a reason they're here, right? They have a manning document position that feeds into the overall readiness of our mission and being able to accomplish our mission. So everyone has a purpose here. And readiness for everyone is a little bit different, but we need to all be ready. Otherwise, the national defense strategy can't get completed through our actions. So that's why readiness I was like, that's got to be the top. And what is readiness? It's people, it's equipment, and then it's validation. And that's what exercises and inspections are, because you got to make sure you know that you can do what you think you can do. So, and then the partnerships. You just cannot do stuff alone. We're better together. We're better as a team. And that, it's very specific that at the squadron or shop level, all the way to national, we need to establish partnerships. It starts like right here, right between us, and that feeds right into readiness, because you can't do it alone. No one can do it alone. And then the transformation is really just another, hey, we don't have enough people typically, right? We're a guard unit. I mean, we are so proud that we achieve the same readiness standard as an active duty unit, and 2/3 of us are part-time. Our backbone of the unit is part-time, and we still do it as good as the active duty. But that's a resource constraint, as well as there's always time, constraints, and money. Well, how do you get around that? You can't just accept it. Well, you're going to have to innovate. That's the vehicle. You got to transform. Always kind of looking out in the future. How can we be better positioned to meet the mission through readiness? So that's how that came about. But then I also know I don't remember any other wing commander's priorities. I expect if people want to read it, that's there. And if they want to study it, that's great. But then I thought, well, what can I do to make this more portable and people to remember it? And I learned this from General Hargens. He had a saying, lethality and readiness. He's like, just do it. Just whatever issue you have, just apply lethality and readiness to it, and you'll be fine. Further lethality and further readiness. To me, with how I was looking at the environment, I thought, okay, what are priorities? Priorities are like what we want to get done, right? If I had 2 words or 3, 1 word, what would it be if people were going to remember? And that was drive readiness. So what do we want to do? Yeah, it's in the priorities here. It's in the strategic plan, but I don't even remember that stuff. So I was like, what will it be? It's going to be drive readiness. So if anyone is out and about and they have to make a decision on an action A or action B, and they don't have the guidance they need, they can't do both, which one drives readiness more in the near term and long term? And then make the decision and go. And if everyone's operating that way, oh my gosh, this thing will be on fire and no one can stop the unit at that point, right? So that's where the drive readiness came from. And then lead, follow, or get out of the way is really a how. Like how I want to act, and how, if I had to give all our airmen one thing on, if you remember one thing on how to act, here it is: lead, follow, or get out of the way. How to operate. What's your attitude? And really all that means is that takes away the hierarchy, right? Of, well, the squadron commander knows best, just whatever he or she says. Maybe not. Just like in those positions in maintenance and coming back over here, I wasn't leading all the time. I had to follow everyone else because I didn't have the knowledge. So it's an acknowledgement of partnerships, teamwork, right? That everyone has a time when they lead, everyone has a time when they follow. And if everyone is focused on that, they're going to fall in line and know when that, and recognize it. And you follow the leader when it's appropriate, and then you lead when you have the hammer and it's your time. And if you're not doing either of those, then we're not going to let you slow us down. We're not going to leave you behind. We're going to pull you back in, but we're not going to let you slow us down. And so that's where that all came from, is really, what can I leave with everybody that they'll remember, and that will allow us to function and do our job to the best of our ability with minimal guidance. And that's just drive readiness. That's the what. And then how is lead, follow, or get out of the way.
When we look at, and I don't want to keep bringing up the CRE, but it's a great visualization of the unit coming together, operating 2 locations, and everything that happened within that. But just day-to-day operations and the lead, follow, or get out of the way. I think when we have learned that with especially Russia, Ukraine, and the importance of being able to make decisions at the NCO level or the airman level, this is more than just a hypothetical. This is a cute thing we could possibly do, but how much does that actually impact the big strategic picture if we can truthfully lead, follow, or get out of the way?
I think it's the difference between mission success and failure in the Pacific. It just hands down. If you put a group of people in the Pacific and put them through in a contested degraded environment with what I think would happen, and they don't have the skill set to lead and follow or make decisions, I think they'll fail. And I think if you do have that skill set, you're more likely to succeed and have a really good chance of succeeding. I think it's just as simple as that.
Awesome. Thank you. So in the coming years, we have challenges that obviously are very apparent and on the news every night. And maybe that is our biggest challenges. But what would you say from your perspective are our biggest challenges for the wing and just the organization as a whole?
Yeah, I'd say the transition with agile combat employment, for great power competition, the wing structure, the deployment cycle, the AFORGEN, the deployable combat wing, and then the validation via the inspections and exercises. The reorg of a wing I haven't seen anything like this in my 28 years. I don't have the answers. I think we're all going to have to come together and figure it out together. I think that's a huge challenge. I think money, resources, if you will, are a big challenge. We saw that this year with mill purse, pullback. You see it in some aspect every year. I think that's only going to continue, and we have to be comfortable making the hard decisions. Between three things that are all valid that we need to do, we have to be able to let one go that doesn't drive readiness as much as the other two. And if we don't have the best information to make that decision, then you just got to make the decision and move on, because you don't want to get stuck in paralysis and not make a decision. And then the last one I think is our people is, recruiting, retention. It's really on the retention side. How do we continue to show and give our airmen the clarity of their value? Because that's why you serve, right? I mean, I serve because it's bigger than me, and I don't have to worry about my purpose, because my purpose is other people and other things, and that gives me a lot of joy. How do we continue through all the challenges, letting our airmen know with clarity what their purpose is and that they're valuable? Because without that, we won't retain them, and we need everyone. Because as I've said throughout, every AFSC, every UTC position on this base, collectively, as you move up and put them into bigger and bigger groups at the shop, then squadron, then group level, and then the wing, are all pointed at mission accomplishment. And we need everyone. We have to be able to do that with this environment where it's just, we're busy, lack of resources, et cetera. So.
And then from the wing perspective, or even the state perspective as the DOSA, what are maybe some challenges some strengths that we have that we don't see, or that we maybe lose sight of?
The one thing I'm always impressed with is our people. Our people, our airmen are so dynamic. They're so highly skilled, and it's not just in their AFSC, right? Because 2/3 of our folks work at other jobs, and there's people I've worked with that I'm so surprised at what they do on the outside, and it's so incredibly valuable, and it gives them another perspective and skill set to bring into and apply military setting that makes us better. Really, to me, our strength is us and our people, and unlocking that is the key, because military is very structured of like, you're an E5, this is what you're expected. Well, no, you might be an E5, but you might have a job that brings skill sets that is not equivalent to an E5, and we need to allow those to blossom and be used. So really, it's our people and the diversity of skill set, and just the wonderful drive they all have to accomplish the mission.
So what would be, again, our audience is hopefully our airmen within the Nebraska Air Guard, but what would be your final message? If you can just have one-on-one time with each one of them, what would be your message to them?
Yeah, I'd tell them that they're extremely valuable. What they do matters, no matter what it is. It doesn't matter what it is on the space. What they do matters for our national defense and for the state for our state as well. You have so much potential. You can do whatever you want. Don't dream big and go do it. Because many of our airmen are in their 20s, and the possibilities are limitless of what you can do with your life. If you've got a dream, take some action, right? Like, took me till I was 23 or so to figure that out. It wasn't too late. I thought it was too late. It's not too late to achieve what you want to do and go after it. And I think that's in everyone. I mean, if you had the propensity to serve and you got here, you can do whatever you want. So everyone's extremely valuable, and that in addition, you can do whatever you put your mind to. The last thing would be just please continue to drive readiness and lead, follow, or get out of the way.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I will just say, from the relationship I've been fortunate to have with you, you have such a great dynamic of both caring about people and focusing on people while also focusing on the mission. I don't know how you do it, but you truthfully do. I don't think you get lost too far on one side or the other. So it's awesome to see you serve as the wing commander. But we're following you through all these times, and I think just the visualization of keep on that North Star, and really trusting you to lead the ship, and we'll keep the wheels turning on it. So Thanks for the time today, but it's always an honor, sir.
Yeah, well, thanks, Kyle. I appreciate the kind words, and but I just want to reiterate, I'm not alone here. You guys are all doing it with me and for me, and I'm doing it for you. And I could not be successful without you and the rest of the folks. So appreciate it.
Absolutely, sir.
Yeah.
A big thanks to Senior Master Sergeant Eddie and Colonel Hess for taking the time to share their stories and leadership perspectives. Always inspiring to hear how our leaders approach challenges and keep the mission strong. Now, even with the shutdown, there's still plenty happening across the Guard. Here are a few stories you may have missed. First, a bit of history. Paratroopers of the Nebraska Army National Guard's 134th Infantry Airborne conducted their final airborne training jumps on September 18th and 19th at Cooper Drop Zone near Meade. Nearly 200 soldiers took part, marking the end of more than 4 decades of airborne operations for Nebraska's Army National Guard. A truly historic moment for the unit and the state. And if you haven't heard, there are new requirements for the revamped Air Force Physical Fitness Test. Make sure you check with your supervisor or the services team members for updates, especially regarding the changes to the 2-mile run and the new scoring standards. Stay ready, stay sharp, and stay informed. Now let's take a look at what's coming up around the base. First, on November 15th during drill weekend, it's finally here. The Turkey Trot 5K at 1500. Keep an eye out for flyers and the base-wide emails for registration details. There is a QR code that you can scan to register. Then on December 6th from 1300 to 1500 in the JFHQ atrium, join us for Cookies and Crafts with Santa, a fun family event to kick off the holiday season. And last month, we forgot to talk about and give a huge congratulations to the 155th LRS team, winners of the 2025 Knuckle Busters annual volleyball tournament. The competition was fierce, and we're already looking forward to seeing everyone again in September of 2026. For any of these updates and event changes, reach out to Kara Loken. Her details are in the comments of the show. She's got the latest info on what's happening around the Guard. Events are happening and added throughout the month. As we head into the holidays, it's time for a quick safety check. If you're traveling for Thanksgiving, take your time, plan ahead, and watch those weather updates. When shopping, especially on Black Friday, stay aware of your surroundings and avoid carrying large amounts of cash. And if you're putting up a tree this year, remember, if it's real, keep it watered and away from heat sources. A dry tree can ignite faster than you'd expect. Check those light cords too. Frayed wires are a quick ticket to trouble. Stay safe, stay smart, and make sure your holidays are filled with joy, not emergencies. Before we close out, we're down to the final weeks to enter for our $50 Amazon card giveaway. You've got 2 chances every month through November 15th. One by leaving a comment right here on Spotify, and one by filling out our anonymous feedback link you can find below. Winners will be announced during our 1-year anniversary episode on December 4th. Head to the link in the show notes to submit your feedback, suggest topics, or volunteer as a co-host or even a full-time host. We'd love to hear your voice and your story on the next episode of the Phantom Fuel podcast. As we wrap up episode 11, I want to once again thank Senior Master Sergeant Eddie and Colonel Hess for their incredible insight, and to every military member, family, and civilian working through the challenges of this shutdown. Your resilience keeps the mission alive. We're back next month with our 1-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been 12 months already. Packed with surprises, stories, and of course, the big giveaway winner announcement. Until then, take care, stay safe, stay connected, and keep fueling that mission. We'll see you next month.